Okay.
Oh, thank you. It's the email that there it is.
The meeting and public hearing of the City of Falls Church Planning Commission for Monday, the 21st of October, is now in session. Paul, would you mind calling the roll?
Absolutely. Mr. John,
Present?
Ms. Hockenberry,
Here.
Mr. Meeks,
Here.
Mr. Rankin,
Here.
Ms. Rogers,
Here.
Ms. Teets,
Here.
Mr. Wodiska.
Here.
Great.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the adoption of the agenda. I'm suggesting that possibly we move the Planning Commissioner reports and the Planning Director's report to the end of
Yeah, that sounds like a
the
good idea.
meeting. And also, we have no minutes for this evening, so that will help us out. So if I could get a motion to...
I so move.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to change the order of the agenda. We will be moving Planning Commission reports and the Planning Director's report to the end of the meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. The adoption, the changes to the agenda are adopted. So we move on to receipt of petitions. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on things other than are on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. The first order of old business is the bus stop and bus shelter master plan. We are being asked to endorse it and recommend that the city council approve it. And Mr. Stoddard, our planner, is going to introduce the report.
Sure. I guess I can do it from here.
You can do it from there, that would be great.
Yeah, well, otherwise it's just a hassle of time
Oh,
to get over to the podium. So this is the bus stop master plan that I've talked about with this body a few times in the past. As really, I think, as March of this year. It's also gone to the CACT since I last met with you all, and they did endorse the plan, and they had some comments that I incorporated into it. And at this point, what I'm looking for is an endorsement from the Planning Commission for the plan before it goes to the City Council for their first work session on it this evening.
okay, and I know that you have presented it to us before, and is there anything specific that you'd like to bring up in it that has changed, or is it...
The largest changes since you last saw it, or I should say the only changes since you last saw it, if you start on page 3 where the images begin, and those carry on through page 6, the CACT requested that bicycle racks be added when possible adjacent to the shelters and benches. And that's been incorporated as an optional element. That's indicated in the plan views there on page 4, and then again on page 6. And the idea is to get them whenever possible, and that's indicated in the text at the top of page 7. Whenever it's feasible to add the bike racks, add the bike racks. There may be space constraints that prevent it from happening, but even when those space constraints exist, there's a direction to staff to look for nearby locations to add the bike racks. The idea is to keep them accessible whenever possible. Otherwise, it was only confirmation. They did confirm that the priority stops made sense. They also confirmed that the process of going through a public meeting to determine whether or not a stop could be consolidated made sense. They appreciated the potential for public feedback before removing a stop, and they also were willing to take on the charge of being the body responsible for hosting those meetings.
Great. I have just one question about all these lovely pictures. Are they all on a concrete slab, or?
Yes.
Yes. So impervious surface.
Yes.
Do we have
I
any?
would mention that the refinement of the graphics has been, there are subtleties in here which I think help you understand what it would actually look like, and I wanted to mention that Mr. Stoddard and Garrison Kidd have been working collaboratively to produce what I think are really fine illustrative examples of what these will look like, and I'm continually impressed with the refinement and clarity of these drawings as they've evolved.
Yes, they're quite good. Is the landscaping that's shown on all of this, is this something that the city is going to put in and maintain?
Yes, that's the intention. And it's shown in sort of a generic fashion, but the intention is that it would be native plantings.
Any questions? Russ?
I have one question related to the recycling the trash cans. I know you said the bike racks are optional. Are the trash cans and recycling a mandatory part of each bus stop?
Yes, that's a required element, and that's indicated on the top of page 3, actually. The section starts on the previous page, general design standards. Point number 4 is that consistent with the city's recycling and trash can policy, all stops should include recycling and trash cans.
Do they need to be in front of the landscaping, or can they be behind?
I think you want to put them up on the sidewalk so that people passing by will generally, you want to make it as easy as possible for people to not litter.
Okay.
Also, that would make it easier to
Service
to
them.
empty them and service them.
And on the bike rack, you have an illustration here. Is that actually the design anticipated for the bike rack?
Yeah, the U-Rack is a preferred standard that's being used in nearby jurisdictions. They're finding that it's better for the bike, actually. It's less likely to topple over as opposed to the ribbon style. Also, the U-Rack, if you'll notice in the plan views, fits very nicely with the space constraints. That bikes are typically about 6 feet from the front of the tire to the back of the tire. So aligning them in that fashion next to the bus stops actually allows you to get them completely off of the sidewalk.
Okay. In my experience, that not the U part is a problem, but the fact that it's just on either end and will hold very few bikes. I mean, you'll get 4 bikes as you illustrate here,
Right.
but you'll get no more than that.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
has
that's
no
the maximum
flexibility.
capacity is four bikes there.
I mean, I don't know how much bike riding is going to be at each stop, but I think this design is limiting. That's all.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that there's a limited number of bikes that this design will hold, and as you noted, that's 4, and that's what's shown in the pictures. I think walking up and down Broad Street and also Washington Street, I'm actually surprised at actually how many bike racks there are. They tend to be a little bit hidden, that there are regularly bike racks along the city. For example, there's some in front of the Flower Building, and there's some in front of the Spectrum as well. And so I think the general approach is just increasing the amount of bicycle parking through the city generally. And then the CACT's specific concern here was that they wanted bicycle parking for anyone who might have happened to ride the bike to the bus stop so that they wouldn't be automatically locking it to the bus stop or the bench.
Oh, I very much support the concept of adding
Right.
a bike rack, because I think it helps with the intermodal aspect of using the buses. I think the design, this is not my preference for the bike rack design.
Right. Do you have a different preference?
I have in the past, like the ribbon design, as you say, because it can hold more bikes. But if there's research that says that's not as efficient, then I'm open to that. I don't like that it's so limiting, like 4 is the maximum with many other bike rack systems. By arranging the bikes in different fashions, you can get more on there.
I would think that
but
one could
I'm
have,
open to,
I
what
think one could have, Paul, there probably is a longer version of this if you in fact needed more capacity at any particular stop.
Right, you can keep adding
Yeah.
U-racks on to the end, and the bikes do end up being stacked as close as they sort of can without the gears and the tires getting intermixed. So it can always be extended with more U-racks on the end if needed.
Yeah, my experience with this type of rack and the way you show the picture is that the pedals and we're getting really detailed here, but I find that they clash, and the lining up as it's shown in the illustration is not the way it works in reality.
Okay.
Are there any further questions?
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Is Is it on? Yeah. On page 3, you talked about, you used the ridership of 15 boardings a day as a criteria for putting up the shelters. Is that, where does that number come from?
The number, in part, it came from, I guess I should say, WMATA ridership. So there's a WMATA ridership and stop specification guideline that they try to apply. They actually call for a shelter at 50 or more boardings a day. I don't think that really does enough for bus riders. And so I picked this number because based on ridership data from the city, which I think is not included in this, it might be included in this final report. It is included in this final report. If you look at the fold-out map on page 10, the existing stops there are those colored circles, yellow, orange, and red. The stops in orange and red are those stops which have more than 15 boardings per day. And if you look at what you, if shelters are placed at those locations, what you've really done is provided bus shelters along the main streets of the city, and it helps to add a character to the city. I felt that if we went with the WMATA ridership of 50 or more, the bus stops would have been too sporadic to really have the sort of community effect.
Thanks.
Well, I just want to commend you on this. This has been a great report, and following it as it went along. We really appreciate all your work on this. I particularly like that you present the way you presented the criteria for getting rid of stops, because I think it's important that if neighborhoods feel as though they're getting rid of a stop that is useful but doesn't show up in your numbers,
Right.
It's an important thing to be able to respond to the neighborhoods and to listen to their appeal. So I appreciate that. Yes?
I thought it was well done, and I was impressed with the efficiency that I think we got through this, so good job. And somebody crafted this excellent motion, so I think I'm going to just read it here. Safe, comfortable, convenient bus stops and shelters are an important part of a bus network. Additionally, attractive bus shelters can help distinguish the city from neighboring jurisdictions. The policies and standards included in the bus stop master plan provide those benefits. Further, the plan is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and in that it supports several of the plan's goals and strategies. Therefore, I move that the Planning Commission endorse the bus stop master plan and recommend that the City Council adopt it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lindy. Mr. Stoddard, would you please call the roll?
Sure.
I have to say something. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this? Sorry, Mr. Thurston, I was rushing us along.
Is it related to this?
Turn it on.
No, not yet.
And 15 Birch Street. It's a tangential question. Is this going to become the city standard for bus stops and bus shelters? And therefore, there have been some odd ones that have been placed in connection with development. And they have these god-awful orange reflective signs on the side of them so that I guess vehicles driving on the sidewalks won't run into the bus stop. So I think, if we're looking for the quality of their streetscape being uniform, then we need to look at something about the odd ones that have appeared, and that maybe they would go away with the replacement of these. And I think the ones that I'm talking about, you've seen them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that part of the plan?
Yes, the
Thank you, Mr. Thurston.
bus stops that the petitioner was responding to are the ones in front of the Spectrum and the Broadway. Spectrum in particular did have a crash where a vehicle did drive into the side of the shelter. It was someone on a bicycle. They crashed through the glass siding there. Part of the reason for that collision was where the shelter was placed relative to the pedestrian and bicycle throughway there on the sidewalk. And specifically, this plan calls for providing 4 feet of space on all sides so that people can pass safely by without hitting the shelter. Additionally, these shelters are set off of the curb. Right now, a lot of those shelters being struck by bus mirrors. So the spacing and the spacing and the location of the shelters does protect them from crashes, both from bicyclists and pedestrians and buses as well. In terms of replacing the existing shelters, that would be worked in with the implementation of the plan or through stop consolidation.
Thank you very much. I guess now we're ready to call the roll if there's no more discussion. Okay, one more question.
When we had discussed this at work session, there was some discussion about there possibly being a space for like a billboard on, or an advertisement to help pay for some of the cost associated with this. I don't see it on any of the illustrations, but is it limited based on what we see here, or is that still a possibility?
So it's still a possibility, and I did include in my staff report to council, which I did include in your, or at least a very almost final draft of that staff report did make it into the Planning Commission package. And it does note that advertising is a way to reduce maintenance costs. And also this plan as it exists is the specifications are still draft, waiting for final engineering by city staff. And so that's something that could be worked in as a second. Right now, there's a call for at least a single board, but a second board could be added into the final engineering.
I would like to see it be an option, something that if there's one of these locations is specifically appealing to an advertiser, I would like to see the ability to put it there.
Okay.
Be written into the.
Is this some? Did you say this is something that's in the city council plan? In what, the staff report that went to city council?
Yes, if you look at the, I believe it's in the financial impact section of the, there it is. Yeah, if you look at the fiscal impact, somewhere around page 57, or I'm sorry, line 57. Down near the end of that paragraph, it says additionally, it's the paragraph that begins maintenance of new bus stop facilities. The final sentence there says, additionally, staff could explore options to reduce these costs with either a stop adoption program or renting advertising space on the shelters.
Can I follow up on something with him? Just very quickly, I think with the addition of any advertisement, we're going to have to look at policies to govern that also, which would have to come later. But I also would like very much to have it be a community type of thing for community activities within the city.
What would be a community activity?
As some part of the advertising be a community type
Oh,
board.
right, bulletin board.
Yeah,
some
yeah.
kind.
Or places to put information about what's going on in the city, because I think this is something we're working with overall with the Catch Committee and with EDA and with everybody else to bring as much information to where it's more visible and to get the information out to the people. And this would be one way of possibly doing it.
Thank you, Lydia.
I think that's part of the intent of when you look at illustration, figure 1, the board that's there would have maps that would have examples of places to go and
Yeah.
nearby businesses.
Right, we could have the maps, we could be part of our wayfinding situation, and just general keeping everything going so that people know that stuff is going on, and it could have the map where the location is. and-
Also in figure 4 on page 5, the illustration there shows a similar kind of a larger signing approach where it would, if there wasn't a shelter, that would have similar kind of
Right.
orientation maps. So I
And
think
the pictures
those are all
look
good
like they're
points.
maps.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I do think, though, we've got to have guidelines.
And this was actually something that the CACT spoke to as well, and so that did make its way into the set of things to add to the specifications. If you look on page 16, which is the start of Appendix C, shelter specifications, item 1 does call for the addition of 2 signboards to be placed inside the shelters to provide space for bus maps and pedestrian wayfinding maps.
Oh, good.
And the signboards are typically designed in a modular fashion, so the idea is that we could add a third one later on if we needed to.
Thank you. Russ, does the language in the resolution answer your request for funding? Or for advertising space? It's, I think he said 56 and 57.
Well, line 50, I'm sorry, the staff report, the discussion about advertising does not make it into the city council's resolution, so if you want that added in, it should probably be added to this
Okay.
motion.
So if it doesn't make it into the city council's resolution, then maybe you might want to do a friendly amendment
Yep.
to the motion.
Motion was on, go ahead.
Item 7A. 7A. Yeah, no, I mean, my reason for wanting this in here is, it says the first 3 years of the funding is covered for these things, and then there's about $1,000 a shelter for maintenance. And I would like to see these maintained if we can get businesses to pay that in a, and set standards that make it look like very professional advertising that could help defer that cost.
Here's the motion, if Russ would like to see it, and then you can do an amendment to it if you'd like.
This is pretty, is vague enough that,
Something like the planning commission further suggests that we consider advertising on some of the boards or?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment that the planning commission recommends that there be the ability to place advertising in the bus shelters that meets agreed upon specification, agreed upon future specifications.
May I also add the community notices?
Advertising in a community bulletin board?
Okay,
Is that
advertising.
acceptable to you?
Yeah, that's acceptable, for sure.
Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we add an amendment to the original motion, as stated by Mr. Wadiska and amended by Ms. Hockenberry. So I'd like to have the roll call, please, on that motion and amendment.
Sure. Here we go. So this is on the motion as amended then?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Teets?
Yes.
Mr. Wodiska?
Yes.
Mr. John?
Yes.
Ms. Hockenberry?
Yes.
Mr. Meeks?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Stoddard. It's a great project.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the commission
Yes.
for your help and attention to this over the past several months. I think this approach gives us a model for doing other components of the transportation planning for the city. It's very easily understood, clear, and well-organized, and so we think this is a good model that we can replicate on other areas.
And so this will go, will the study go into the comp plan in the transportation?
I think it will be referenced as a study that would be referenced in the comp plan.
Great,
Yes.
thank you.
What action is the city council taking tonight on this?
They're doing a resolution
Okay.
to
City
adopt.
Council is getting its first look at it in a work session
Okay.
tonight with the intention then that they'd be ready to adopt by
Okay.
resolution at a future.
Yeah, it doesn't even have a number yet, so. I
It
noticed
did
that.
get one
Oh, you
after
did?
I
Good.
sent out the planning commission package though.
Okay. That's good. We'll move on to new business. First order of new business is the bicycle wayfaring and Sherrill project along Park Avenue and Maple Avenue. We've been asked to look at it and recommend, to endorse it and recommend adoption by the city council. And I guess you're in charge of that one, too.
Correct. So the project is indeed it's a bicycle wayfinding and Sharrow project along Park Avenue and Maple Avenue. Tonight, the Planning Commission is being asked to endorse it. There is no requirement to go to council to get an endorsement from them. This
Good,
is something
okay.
that's within the city manager's purview. So describing this project, this is something that grew out of the CACT's fact-finding. They did a visual survey of features along the W&OD trail and compared what was in the City of Falls Church to what was in other jurisdictions. They also conducted surveys of trail users to identify what amenities trail users most wanted to see. And one of the things that came up again and again was a need for signage directing trail users to city businesses, attractions, cultural events, restaurants. That's something that the City of Falls Church doesn't have on its portion of the trail that other jurisdictions do. And so that's, one, it's a missed opportunity for trail users to enjoy things in the city, but it's also a missed opportunity for the city to attract additional customers to its businesses. And so the CACT looked at it, and if you look in the project description, which was included in an attachment on page 6, again, there's a fold-out map. And what it shows, you'll see the W&OD running along the north sort of edge of the city there. And then circling around the city in brown, that's the city's existing bicycle route. And then highlighted in those two green lines are the Sharrow and wayfinding routes that this project describes along Park Avenue and Maple Avenue. And so this does exactly what the CACT wanted to do. It directs trail users off of the W&OD, whether they're approaching from the west or the east, and brings them through the commercial areas of the city. It brings them along both the Broad Street and Washington Street corridors without actually directing them onto what are very busy automobile thoroughfares. And so this really allows access for everyone into the commercial areas of the city.
Thank you.
Further, this plan does agree with the concepts described in the city's comprehensive plan, and those are described in page 5 of the project description. The comprehensive plan calls for encouraging the use of non-automotive modes of transportation within the city and to the region. The plan also calls for improving pedestrian and bicycle safety throughout the city. That's where the Sharrow aspect of this project comes in. There's an image on page 3 of the plan which shows what effect Sharrows can have certainly on a bicyclist behavior. You'll see that this Sharrow has been painted in such a way to get the cyclist operating out of what's called the door zone. This is the area that the doors of parallel park cars swing into when they open up. You want to keep cyclists out of that area as much as possible for their own safety. Sharrows can also help bicyclists in alerting motorists to the fact that bicycle traffic is generally going to be heavier on the street and people should be looking out for cyclists. So that's how Sharrows aid that comprehensive planning goal of increasing bicyclist safety. And lastly, the comp plan calls for establishing a network of pedestrian and bicycle trails to link neighborhoods with services, shopping, parks, metro stations, schools, and the city center. And that's exactly what these two new routes would do. They bring people off of regional trails, they connect them to the metro station, they bring them to shops, it goes through neighborhoods, so it does all the things that the comp plan is asking for.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, I turn it over to commissioners. Lindy?
Yes, thank you. I was at the EDA meeting when this was proposed to the Economic Development Authority with funding, with a request for funding of $5,000 to get it going. And so it does have that behind it. It has a strong recommendation from the EDA. And I think this is an excellent start to, because if you've been along Arlington trails and out in Percival, anywhere, there's wayfinding all over the place. And this would eventually connect even with some of our walking tours that could become biking tours and all. So we're beginning to get a network of things, again, things going on in the city.
Any further comments?
I have a couple quick questions. Overall, I think this is great. Do you know the logic behind going up Maple instead of Little Falls? Is it just less traffic? It's a little more convoluted.
Yeah, there was a discussion about that in the CACT, and I had originally looked at Little Falls, but the CACT said, no, 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 we want to be on Maple because the hill is not as steep. And I do, when I bike into the city, I do bike up Little Falls, and I am shifting into a pretty low gear to make my way up at that hill right before that light with Great Falls. And so the idea was to move them to Maple, where the hill isn't as steep, and then also you don't have to put a zag or a zig in the middle of the path to get across Broad Street.
Sounds good. And then, are there no wayfinding signs on other parts of the WNOD, you know, like at Great Falls or something? Because we're not trying to encourage the bikes to come into the city off of the designated bike path that we're defining here, or was that considered? Like, there's several places where you could come off the path into the city, other than the two where the signs seem to be.
Oh, so you're asking why Park and Maple and why not all of the streets that the trail intersects with?
I don't know about all of them, but one in the middle,
More
for
of them.
example, yeah.
The thought on that was that the majority of traffic is either going to be, the vast majority of traffic is already going to be on the trail. Great Falls is not, I think, typically used as a bike sort of thoroughfare. And so catching riders just as they come over that overpass, if they're coming from the west, or just as they enter the city boundary, was going to catch the majority of traffic. It also allows for a consolidation of bicycle facilities, and collecting all the cyclists onto a smaller number of routes can actually make them safer. You get into the safety in numbers effect, where people generally know, oh, right, Maple there, bikes there.
And then my last comment is just whether or not we would consider putting wayfinding signs further out on the bike path. I mean, on the Little Falls one, it's at the entrance to the city, but certainly there's a lot of bike path in the city. What is that, west of the bridge, where you can say, hey, coming up, cool things on the road. And then whether or not you could even get some of that into Arlington, I don't know if that'd be able to coordinate. But, you know, the idea that even if the wayfinding sign isn't saying turn here, it might say, hey, in a mile, you'll be able to turn and go get a cup of coffee or something like that.
And that's something, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
I think one other piece that we haven't had a chance to present to the commission is there is a larger plan that we're looking at for revitalizing lots of parts of the WNOD trail. And there are opportunities as a part of that to do much more telling the city's story, I believe.
Yeah, and as part of reaching out to other jurisdictions and planning this thing jointly, there was a lecture by Ralph Bueller, who's a bicycle expert, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and at that meeting I did have a chance to meet with some bike planners from Arlington County, who Jim is on a first name basis with, and there is a regular sort of luncheon that bike planners in the region have. And that's certainly something that I could bring up, that, you know, Falls Church is putting in these wayfinding signs, and the city would like some support from the surrounding counties to, you know, put up some signs directing people this way. So that's something I could bring up.
And of course, there is the whole issue of bike share, which, if it should ever come to East Falls Church in Arlington, and we've made a decision that we'd like to do something like that, that would increase our visibility and activity on the bicycle world.
Madam Chair, somebody, Russ has got it.
One concern I have, I saw a couple of the WOND presentations about all the different things we could do, and they had pictures from out in Loudoun County all the way up here with people that did things. And I remember some of the Arlington ones were actually very cluttered, and so I was kind of looking at, like, where it's like the OND and the end of Park there, where Grove and everything is, and you have 21 through 26 signs. So that's like, I mean, how are these? I'm just assuming because of the scale, it just seems like they're on top of each other. But
Right.
I also don't want to like overwhelm people with signs.
Right. And I agree that the photo ends up looking very messy. To describe a little bit better about what that would end up looking like, I'm going to start actually on the other side of the trail where the diagram's simpler. The intersection of Little Falls and the WNOD trail. There's, on the trail, you would have two signs in total.
It's like way
One
too many
for,
signs.
yeah.
Sorry. Well, he's also diagramming over here what
Right.
he thinks it looks like.
Right, the idea is that there's one for each direction of travel as they're approaching the intersection. So if you look at Little Falls and WNOD, that's why you need 4 signs. So one for people who are approaching the trail from the south, one for people who have just turned off the trail. You want to let them know they actually turned in the correct direction. And then for people who are coming on the trail either from the east or the west, they get one sign directing them either keep going if you want to get to Arlington or Fairfax, wherever you're going, or turn here to get to the downtown area. And then the reason there are so many more dots over on the west side is because you actually have to turn twice. You have to get off of Park onto Grove and then off of Grove onto the trail. So there's 2 extra signs.
Okay, no, and I get that. I get all the different directions and things. It just, I don't know, it reminded me of some of the Arlen pictures where there was just so many signs, I don't even know what people knew what they were supposed to look like. So I'm assuming that this will work. And I just think we need to watch them as we put them up to make sure they seem like, you can see all of them. I also was curious why we didn't have signage on the other side of the bridge. So coming into this, so people are coming into the city, like, kind of through, like, a residential area, but they're coming out right where that shopping center is, where Quiznos and everything is, the West End. And there's, like, no signage on that side of the bridge saying anything, which I was kind of surprised, because we're getting ready to cross Route 7, and there's retail on either side. So, I mean, that was the only suggestion I have. At some point, maybe we might think about signage there.
Thank you. And
If
Libby?
if I could just add something about the signage, this is just the beginning of possibilities, and $5,000 certainly isn't going to cover even everything we're talking about tonight.
I think they've agreed to fund the entire project for up to $16,000.
Okay, yeah.
Tip of the iceberg.
Right, but to also perhaps look at possibility in the future of coordinating into one of the conglomerate type of CIP proposals. Also, the fact that the Little City logo will be on all the signs suggested by the EDA.
Any further comments or questions? Russ?
I just heard the tail end of what Lindy was saying, but I would support the logo of the Little City logo on the signs, for sure. I apologize if that's exactly what you just said. I had one question, or a couple questions. The first is on page 4. This just looks like a typo, but I actually don't know the answer. On the very first paragraph, it says that there's approximately some number of trips every day, and I don't know if it's 12,000 or 1,200. It's like the third line. And I was curious what the fact, which was.
1,200.
1,200, okay.
And it's not the entire WNOD, it's the portion of the trail that runs through the city, and that comes off of a counter from Arlington County. Arlington County has installed a number of bicycle and pedestrian counters along their portion of the WNOD trail, and I assume the Custis Trail as well. And that's the number of people who cross into the Arlington County border on the WNOD trail every day. So I assume that they're going through Falls Church.
That's a great number of people, and as we've said, it's a third major thoroughfare through our city. I think statistics like that really prove that point. My overall comment is, again, tremendous support for this. If you look at the map, which shows our current bike routing, not only is it nonsensical to me, but if you try to actually follow it, it's very difficult, if not near impossible. So to try to simplify the process, I think this is a really terrific effort to make that happen. And I think the idea, especially on Park, to bring bike traffic onto Park really makes a lot of sense. I know it was discussed with the CACT, but I think that's a road, because of how it runs through the city in parallel to Route 7, should really be, attention should really be placed on that road, and this, with the sharrows and the wayfinding signs, I think that's going to be a really big help on Park. When I was looking at it looks like the descriptions of every sign, one of the things that I was trying to figure out was, there was a picture of the actual signs, and like a sample, and there it said State Theater, Metro, and Dining was the third option.
Right.
On the descriptions for the actual signs, I saw no sort of reference. I know we're not trying to highlight specific restaurants and stuff like that, but there was no mention of the food and drink, which I think is really appealing to a cyclist to say I'm thirsty, or even to say, I mean, we say downtown Falls Church, but that's just sort of, I'd like to, I don't know what the right phrasing is, but to say there's commerce here, not just the downtown.
Right.
This is where you can stop and, where maybe it just says the word shopping, or like you have on this example, dining, something like that, especially on these signs that only have one destination. That looks like there's opportunities to put another location. And
What about allowing businesses to buy a sign, like on the highway?
there are, well, I'll let Paul answer, but I think that's typically not the point of this. There are places where I think you can buy through Northern Virginia. You can, like, I know the bike shop, Bikenetic, has one in Falls Church. It's like a little brown sign that's separate. And they do, I know they pay like $75 a year or something like that for that sign. It's good advertising if you can, if they let you. But you'd know more about it.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, one more other thing, because I did not consolidate my comments, but it was on another sheet. But along with all this, we really need to look at putting bike racks all over the place. There isn't enough at Spectrum and at different, I know we've required them at certain places and everything, but for instance, I know people have asked me about getting bike racks at CVS's and with all these things, because there just are no bike racks.
Right.
If we're going to encourage biking, we need to have a safe place for their bikes.
But
So
that's-
it might be a new project.
Right.
I would like to speak to that very quickly, just because there is some positive momentum around that. Tim Stevens, the chair of the Environmental Services Council, did contact me about how we could go about getting a bike rack in front of the Burke and Herbert Bank. And I mentioned to him that other jurisdictions have these things called adopt request a rack programs, where citizens write in a request to staff and say, hey, I want a bike rack here, and the city sets aside a budget every year for installing so many racks, and they just respond to the requests as they come in. Falls Church doesn't have that, but I did offer some technical expertise in terms of how to site the bike rack, and recommended that he actually just reach out to Burke and Herbert and ask if they would install a bike rack, make a case for it, say, I'm a bike rider, I want to visit the bank more often, and I need a bike rack to do it. And Burke and Herbert did agree to install a bike rack, and they're expecting to install one soon. So I think there are opportunities to just outright ask business owners to put them in. And I think there's also an opportunity for the city to fund a small program that could respond to that need.
But that's another report, right?
Right.
Okay.
We digress.
I would like to try to wrap this up so we can get Paul downstairs for the council.
Yes. Do we have a motion on this?
As I said, very supportive of the efforts you did here. I think it's a terrific plan. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion. Bicycle wayfinding and sharrows are important components of a bicycle transportation network. They attract new bicyclists and improve bicyclist safety. In addition to providing safety benefits, this project also brings economic benefits by connecting downtown city businesses to the W&OD Trail. This project will attract some of the thousands of people that use the W&OD Trail every day to frequent city businesses. This project is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan in that it supports several of the plan's goals and strategies. Therefore, I move that the Planning Commission endorse the project to install bicycle wayfinding and sharrows along Park Avenue and Maple Avenue.
Second.
Thank you, Rob. Is there any, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this motion. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Hockenberry? Yes. Mr. Meeks?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Teets?
Yes.
Mr. Wodiska?
Yes.
Mr. John?
Yes.
All right.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Our next order of business is the Tinner Hill Historic Site. Ms. Mester is supposed to be presenting.
She
I don't
will,
see
and
Danny
if
here
we
either.
can take a very quick break and let Mr. Stoddard go downstairs and let Ms. Mester come up.
Okay.
Also wanted to introduce a new staff person. Keita Rousey, who is here and going to be standing in while Paul is downstairs. Keita comes to us from City of Alexandria, and she has a degree in architecture from Howard and a master's degree from Cornell in planning. She's working with us with the Architectural Advisory Board and on our counter services staff. So we're very pleased to have someone with her skills and background
Well, will we be able to use her expertise as well?
here as we are tonight.
Thank you.
Here to help.
Yes, but more than recording, I hope we can call on your, when needed. Thank you. So we will break for a few minutes until Ms. Mester comes upstairs.
Can we, all right.
There's nothing else.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Anything?
Ms. Mester, are you ready? Okay. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. We're still in new business, and we're in the second item of new business, which is the Tinner Hill Historic Site. We're being asked that, to make a finding that the historic site project is in concurrence with the comp plan. Ms. Mester, if you would start, please.
Thank you, Chair and Planning Commission. I'm pleased to be here before you this evening to ask for your review and concurrence on the 2232 comp plan to ensure per state code that this project would be in general location, character, and extent consistent. And I do have a motion to that extent on page 4. It lacks those 3 phrases of general location, character, and extent. And so when the Planning Commission member who might make a motion would amend that, I would appreciate it. This is a project that, of course, has been in long work from 1999 when the city and county purchased the land from the original ground lease partnership with the Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation back in 2000 to 2002. And we do have with us Ed and Nikki Henderson this evening. And we have a short history here of all the work that's evolved, but I think it's really exciting that the community, the localities, and the partnership with the Regional Park Authority have come together now that will allow us to bring the dreams of the Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation and the community to tell our civil rights history have come together. The Regional Park Authority has a draft memorandum of understanding with the foundation that we'll be refining. They have just come out with their annual report that was just presented to council this past Monday, and the Regional Park Authority has under the City of Falls Church, besides identified the W&OD Trail, has a nice bright red star that says the Tinner Hill Historic Site. They have, in working with the foundation and Ed and Nikki, come up and adopted the formal name, and so it is the Tinner Hill Historic Site. It will be managed in collaboration with the foundation as a park, but it is to be a historic site telling the history and story and having that interactive education interpretation. As the memo notes, the Regional Park Authority has also just approved in their CIP $175,000 to start implementing phase 1 of this project. And Delegate Scott, through the General Assembly this past session, got $20,000. So we are in a good position to do phase 1. I didn't put a map in the project because I think with doing the South Area Washington plan, you all have talked a lot about the Tinner Hill Historic Site, the Arch, the Henderson House, and the Arts and Cultural and History. But of course it is on Tinner Hill Road. It's about a ½ acre, it's a ½ acre each. It has a dividing line of the county and city, which is part of its history that will need to be interpreted and told. And we're really excited to be at this piece. The plan will be to take this to council for first reading on October 28th for the lease, which will be a city, county, regional park authority ground lease for 99 years. Take a conservation easement on it so the land will be protected for its intended purpose, which gives some assurance to all parties regardless of any changes. And then the 2232 will go to council with Planning Commission's action and recommendation based on this evening. That'll be for first reading so that by the end of November we can come back for second reading. This, of course, has the county components. They're doing their 2232, which only goes to their Planning Commission, and that should be happening in November. And then they will do the lease. And then while we're working all that concurrently, all 4 parties will be supporting the foundation, the Regional Park Authority, to finalize the memorandum of understanding where the Park Authority will do the maintenance and the ongoing operations of it, but the foundation will be integral in the interpretation and the programming and the telling of the signs and so forth. There is, if you look at the August of last year's data that's on the website, The full program has much more involvement. This is phase one, which will be some interpretive signs, some form of a nice pavilion. The foundation's been working with the Regional Park Authority on some options, and they have some new ones at Meadowlark that will use the pink stone to tell the story, some restroom facilities, and then over time, with additional fundraising in partnership with the Foundation of the Park Authority, then to be able to further outline Joseph Tinner's home, have more of a story platform and facilities there that might tie to future redevelopment on South Washington. So we're really excited to be at this stage of phase one and request that the Planning Commission favorably consider and find this in conformance with the comp plan, the South Washington Street Corridor Planning Opportunity Area 2, Chapter 3, which of course you all have adopted and council is opposed to do so, the 1999 land acquisition for this purpose, the 2002 ground lease with the foundation, and then the Regional Park Authorities adopt a strategic plan which calls for regional multi-jurisdictional partnership and historic preservation, and then of course the recently adopted CIP. And I would be glad to entertain any questions that you have, as I know Ed and Nikki are available as well.
Thank you, Ms. Mester. Are there any, before I open it up to the public, are there any comments or questions from the Planning Commission? No? All right, I'd like to open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this this comprehensive plan concurrence?
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm Nikki Graves Henderson. I'm the Executive Director at Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation, and I've been living in the city since 2003 and totally in love, enamored with the Tinner Hill Historic Site. As a museum professional, I was just totally struck at finding an authentic historic site where something major that had an impact on not only this city, but the region and the nation as well. And that property still pretty much in the same condition that it always was, and even more astonishing to find the family that lived in that area since shortly after the Civil War still there. So I am very happy, very pleased, very proud that we have come to this point where we are now about to get our just due. So I say to you that we have worked very closely with the City of Falls Church, with the county, and we are very, very supportive of this project. We are confident that the MOU that we are crafting with the Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority will come up with a working relationship that is comfortable and benefits all parties. As you probably well know, we have done research on that, historical research. We've hired historians, we've asked archaeological digs, and all of that information the Park Authority will have the benefit of. So developing a program that interprets that history and shares it with the rest of the community and the region, we are just tickled to death that it is going to happen. So I think that this project is going to be innovative, engaging, and historically accurate. So I thank you and hope that you will support the project.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Any further comments? Any questions? Any comments? I think you've got a supportive audience up
I was
here.
going to say, I think we've all just been waiting for this to happen. It seems like it's been going on for years.
And Chair, if
Yeah,
I
just
could,
been
for the
waiting.
record, I didn't call out two other things, but of course, it's very complementary and will tie in the whole area with the Intermodal Transit Plaza and your next project, the Reserve at Tenor Hill.
Right.
Well, if no one has any comments, I think we'll move
I
on to
think
a
I
motion.
have somewhat of a conglomerate of a, okay, I move that the Planning Commission finds that the general location, character, and extent of the Tenor Hill Historic Site Plan is in compliance with the comprehensive plan per 2232 requirements, and recommend to the City Council approval. May I ask if you also want the contingencies read into that? Mr. Snyder? Do you want the contingencies 1, 2, and 3 read into that also?
The contingencies were only if you were going to have denial.
Okay.
Okay,
So
well,
less
it
for
has the
the-
landscaping plan coming back.
Tell us for the planning director, if he wanted any justifications for the record, I certainly would welcome them.
It's really the commission as to whether or not you want to see the landscaping plan come back. I think we can handle it administratively.
Well,
but-
this is why, this was part of the contingent.
Yeah.
Let me just read this. Also, and of course, the number is 2012-0818. And one, the contingencies, there's 3. The landscaping plan comes back for final approval, but we don't want that. Okay, then the staff has the, I know, but there's also, oh, thank you.
All right, so your motion is
Yep.
that you move that the planning commission finds that the historic site is in compliance, and we recommend it to the city council
Right,
to
right.
approve.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, is
I'll
there a second?
second that.
Okay,
getting
it's
my
been
Tenor
moved
Hills
and
mixed up.
seconded to recommend to city council that they approve the Tenor Hill Historic Site because it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Would you please call the roll, and we'll see.
Sure. Ms. Teets,
Yes.
Mr. Wodiska,
Yes?
Mr. John,
Yes.
Ms. Hockenberry,
Yes.
Mr. Meeks,
Yes.
Mr. Rankin,
Yes.
Ms. Rogers.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously. We look forward to visiting this site very soon.
Next summer groundbreaking is our goal. Thank you, Planning Commission, I appreciate it. Good luck on the rest of your meeting. I'm returning to council now.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to the third item on our agenda under new business, which is the Reserve at Tenor Hill Development Project, the site plan. We have a lot of paper. We appreciate you giving us so much information. And Mr. Bruce is going to lead us in the background.
Madam Chair, good
Yes.
evening. The last time you all took a look at this was back in August, and you had a work session, and, you know, obviously before that, you got to see the concept. The special exception came up, so none of this is new. I'm going to keep my comments very brief. You have the comments from the Architectural Advisory Board, which is attachment number 3. You also should have a memo from Barbara Cram from Catch. If you don't, we've got copies. Oh, they
Is
just
that
got
something that came in just a few minutes ago? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that just came in today, late. And then, so this is our minus number, or planning number 2012-0818, known as the Reserve at Tenor Hill, being developed by Lincoln Property. I'm going to let each of the speakers tonight introduce themselves. Mark, Stephanie just introduce, and then when you're finished with the PowerPoint, if it helps, Madam Chair, you might want to just have everybody sit up front here, and that way, you know, they can spread their stuff out and
I think
answer
that'd be great.
questions.
Thank
So,
you.
okay, who wants to go first?
I'm Richard Rose with Lincoln Property Company, and we've been working on this, I guess, for about 2 years now, and I think interacted with each of you on many occasions, and I appreciate that. We're going to try to be brief tonight, too, but show you where we've addressed comments from the Architectural Review Committee, and also, I guess, some of the comments that we had from Catch. And so we'll go briefly through the program with Mark Drake, our architect, going through some of the architectural changes that we've made, and then Stephanie Pankowitz going through the streetscape and the historical cultural trail that we have come up with. So with that, I'll let Mark take it over.
Hi, Mark Drake with KTGY. Can everybody see the drawings okay? Do we need to turn the
Yes,
lights down or anything? I think it's okay. If you can't see it, let me know. Okay, that'd be great. The images you have, the 11 by 17s, should be of the same images, I hope, if I did my job correctly. Okay, that's a little bit better. Let me get my laser pointer out here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, well, we had a meeting with staff about a month ago with Jim and Lauren, and we had some discussion points, and we responded to their input. And we had a meeting with the AAB about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and we responded to their input. So what we are showing you tonight is different than what we showed you previously, because we've had those two meetings, and we've modified the exterior of the building to reflect Jim and Lauren's and AAB's input. So I'm going to go through that. This is the same perspective you saw before. We haven't changed these perspectives, but we will talk about the elevations. Let me see here. West elevation. You can hear me. So in the changes to what we've done to the project in response to the meetings we've had, we've changed these lighter gray ends to darker gray. We changed this element to a lighter, almost an off-white color. This brick above this is now brick above the retail. We changed it to a pinkish color. The brick at the entry, this brick remains down in here. And the spandrel panel colors, which are these colors, I think there's one there. It's kind of hard to see because yellowy kind of light, but those have been changed to a gray color. Not a whole lot of changes in this elevation. On the south Maple, this is south, yes. On the south elevation at Washington Street, we've changed the tower ends to, these are now matching, this end right here is matching this right here, and this is the other side on South Maple, so these are matching now. The central element, we had kind of a stepping thing going on. We've simplified that, and we've made this all a red brick, which is an improvement. We had some kind of geometry problems going on here. We've solved that by kind of making this precast band through there, and we put glass handrails on both of the courtyards. So now if you're on the courtyard, you're actually behind a glass handrail looking out onto South Washington Street, which is pretty cool. The brick above the retail here is the same pink color as here, so these have now been kind of more consistent. I guess one of the things that we heard from the city was that we were maybe a little bit too busy, a little bit too inconsistent, so we've gone back and tried to make things, simplify things a little bit, if you will. The full base, we now have a full base of stone all the way across here. We had kind of a brick thing here going on in the middle, but we've changed that to a full base of stone across this entire base here. It does down here wrap the corner a little bit here, and then when the brick element starts right about there somewhere. Again, we changed the spandrel color on some of these windows. It's hard to see, to a darker gray color to match, which is kind of consistent throughout the whole building. So that's the extent of the changes on South Washington. So on Maple, this was probably the side of the street, the building that had the most comments on South Maple. This is this elevation down here. So what we've done is we revised this canopy at the main entry of our building, which is the residential. We revised this to be more glazing and with a wider stair. The stairs are much wider than they used to be. We changed the glass door, or the door on the loading dock is now a glass, what do you want to call it, I'm trying to think of the word, sectional glass door, that's what I'm trying to think of. There was a louver here that has since been, we've done away with, and we've changed it back to brick. This louver has been changed to kind of a, what's the word I'm trying to think of more of a ornamental mesh screen louver instead of kind of the typical louvers with the fins on it. Again, that's to improve the appearance. The brick above the retail, again, this brick here and in here and in here. We added brick here, we added brick here, but all of this brick is kind of the pinkish color, so it's consistent throughout here. We've added red brick to the middle portion here, and that before was kind of a light gray color of cementitious paneling. We've made this brick to match the other side of the building, which is on South Washington. These elements were kind of a dark charcoal gray before. We've made them red paneling to match the brick. So those have been lightened in color. And in general, one of the things we heard from the city was that we wanted to be, we should be more sympathetic to the Pearson Square building, and we didn't really have anything that was kind of really close to that building. So we've gone back. That's why we've added the red brick where we can, and we've added more of the pinkish brick where we can. Let me see. We changed the detail here that the AAB commented on. We basically flipped this elevation to match this elevation, so it's kind of the opposite hand version. This was over here, this bay was over here, and we've since flipped that and got this element here to match that element there. That was a comment. Again, we've got the dark gray towers, which we didn't have before. Spandrel colors in certain areas, like for instance here, we've changed that to a dark gray color so it's consistent throughout. Okay, I think that's about it. So, and then on the Tinner Hill elevation, some of the same things happened. This was a dark charcoal color before. Now we've changed it to a red to match this brick. Again, we've made sure these dark elements at the end kind of match up. This was a darker element before. We made it into a lighter element. And I should go back and point out, I think these were darker elements before, and they've been changed to a lighter element. And one of the reasons we did that was because the comment was kind of, if you look at the more traditional architecture, you have light, you have a light color on top of a darker color. We had a darker color on top of a lighter color, and that was kind of seemed to be kind of at odds with what we were doing, what was happening across the street. So we've gone back and tried to do some things that gets a little more similar to what Pearson Square is doing. Again, we've changed the loading dock door to a sectional glass door. That'll be frosted glass, so you can't see in and see all the wonderful things going on in the loading dock, but it will be glass, and it'll be a very high finish door. Again, the brick up here has been changed to a pink to be consistent throughout the whole project. We have pretty much the red brick, we have the pink brick, we have the stone base, these elements that project out for the retail and for this entry here, and we have stone around this side here. So that's been made more consistent. And let's see. Then the louver over here has been changed to a mesh louver, so it's better looking than just a kind of traditional fin louver. And we did introduce a light gray element here we didn't have before to kind of get this it just seemed like we had white coming down here and white here, and it didn't seem to work, so we did some light gray there. So that's pretty much what we've done with the building since you last saw it. The interiors of the buildings haven't changed any, so we're pretty much haven't done much with that. It's pretty much set where it's at. And Stephanie Pankowitz with Land Design has some landscape elements and some other elements to show you that have been changed since the last time. So if you want, I can have her come up here and talk about that, and then we can do questions later. Here you go. You need that.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Pankowitz with Land Design. I am the landscape architect on the project, and pleased to discuss some of the updates that we'll walk through this evening. I do want to note there are a couple things that at Art and Architecture Board, they asked us to study, and they include doing some 3D models and other elevation studies that I'll talk about of two specific elements, the arch at the corner and also a sort of experiential art piece along South Washington. And those were still in process, but I can share the comments we heard and kind of what we're looking at. So the first slide I'd like to walk you through is the materials board that kind of outline all the elements that we're doing around the streetscape. And one important thing to note is that when you walk along the entire project from South Washington through the Gateway Plaza and on Maple and on Tinner Hill, there's no back door to this project. We are treating every streetscape, every corner, every element with high quality materials and incorporating it into the appropriate theme and experience. So for example, on Pearson side along South Maple, we've talked with you all that this will match the Pearson brick and streetscape, and we've actually found, we went back to the design team for Pearson's, went to the contractor, and we have the exact brick specification that was actually installed on the project. And so on that side, the streetscape materials, the site furnishings, and the materials are, very complementary to the Pearson side. As you transition onto the Tinner Hill Street, that's really when you first get the introduction to the cultural streetscape, and you'll see there's a materials change here at this corner that continues all along the South Washington streetscape. We're actually bringing in a different field of paving that is complementary to the pink and gray and brown tones that are in the granite of the pink granite at the arch. And this cultural streetscape incorporates a historical timeline that has historical markers and facts about the Tinner Hill history and the neighborhood. And we're recognizing that this is not the historic site, but rather it's really being a good neighbor to everything that's happening in the district and in the community to highlight the past history. And there's a narrative in the most recent site plan submission that I won't read to you entirely, but it's really about the reserve being a good neighbor to the entire community and highlighting the, as Nikki and Cindy just spoke about, the wonderful history at the historic site across Washington. And so what you see here, there's unique seat areas that encourage conversation. There's outdoor dining. The park has about 1,000 square feet of hardscape that can be used for events and festivals. You could have outdoor movies, and all of it's encouraging people to explore the historical the historical trails and timeline throughout the community, go to the restaurants, go to the Creative Cauldron to see a play, and it's really about experiencing the art district. And I just briefly want to talk a little bit about the planting material that we're using. Again, we're really looking to make sure that this is culturally appropriate. Where possible, we are using native species such as the willow oak, which is the stately street tree along Washington. In the tree planter pits, we're using proven plants that do well in urban streetscape environments. We have a variety of planter boxes that are incorporated into the streetscape that add interest, and along even the restaurants, they could potentially be like herb or perennial gardens, cutting gardens for the restaurants. And then on South Maple and Tinner Hill, we're actually proposing to use a variety of the sugar maple that would, again, highlight the name of the street along with appropriate ground cover. And then in the park, we are focused more on a native ground cover that is highlighting the story of the riparian stream that, of course, is channelized through that area. But use of the trees such as the swamp white oak and the river birch and the Gateway Plaza, along with perennial grasses along the edge of the property line along the comic store property line. And additionally, we have planter pots throughout the entire project that will add seasonal color. So I'll just go back to the site plan because I want to just talk briefly a little more about the what Art and Architecture Board and Catch and stakeholders have asked us to look at in regards to the arch. Right now, the alignment is such that when you walk through the arch, you step down into the entrance plaza for the grocery store. And so they've asked us to look at that, if we could relocate that so that you, when you walk through the arch, you continue on the streetscape. So we're going to be doing a model of that corner to make sure we meet ADA requirements, accessibility requirements, clear zone widths, you know, for the sight lines at the corner, and a variety of other issues. And let me, whoops, going the wrong way. And then the other element that, along with studying the location of the arch at the corner, in our original site plan submission, we talked about doing what we called the Tinner Hill Celebration Mural. That would be part of the cultural streetscape along South Washington, and at the, you know, kind of supporting the overall narrative and culture of the site. Well, when we got the building elevations, we realized that there would actually be windows into the grocery store, and that the grocery store and architect had proposed windows that would be spandrel windows where it's covering up the garage behind. And so we started thinking about maybe another experiential element that would be a gateway to the city, it would be a gateway to the district, and it would really support this story about the arch, which from the narratives that we'd read that had been provided by the Tinner Hill Foundation, the two pillars of the arch meet together and simplify the union of Joseph Tinner and E.B. Henderson and the work that they did together. And so we really felt that that was an uplifting story. And so we proposed this idea to the design team and then have presented it to Catch and to the Architectural Review Board that would actually incorporate these art pillars that would be an uplifting moment as you walk along the streetscape or you drive into Falls Church. And it really would be about, again, supporting the dignified story of the history as well as the emerging arts and cultural district. And so what we've proposed is that these pillars would actually be a material that might move or flutter in the wind or be uplit. So you get that, again, it's an experiential piece, and that there'd actually be grounded in the foundation of stone at the base, so it could be an opportunity to incorporate the actual pink granite into the pillars and highlight the foundation of the community and the historical foundation. So right now this is under development. We had proposed 5 pillars representing the pillars of Catch, and one of the things the Art and Architecture Board asked us to do is to look at the location of the 5 pillars, that perhaps that we have 2 of them, you know, grouped together in pairs between the windows. And they asked us to look at the locations of whether or not we could actually separate them so that all 5 pillars of Catch stood on their own. So we're currently looking at that, as well as just kind of studying how the whole experience, once you layer in streetscape and signage, sort of the balance of what's occurring with the art piece, and also just how the art piece would actually work in regards to maintenance. And we don't want to invite vandalism, so we want to make sure that if it does have sort of movable, shimmering pieces, that it's vandal-proof at the base. So we're looking at different alternatives of how the foundation actually might work. And the other element is just at street level for the pedestrian, whether it's a child or adult, we want to look at it really incorporating into the stone foundation. It's sort of a mirrored reflective object. So when you walk along the streetscape and you're experiencing the historical timeline and you're learning about the background of those who lived at the Tinner Hill historic site and fought for, you know, civil rights here in Falls Church, you would actually see yourself reflected in it. So again, we're trying to continually tie that, the past and the present, and integrating as a good neighbor. So those elements are still under development, and we'll be continuing to go back and work with the stakeholders and with city staff on the refinement.
With that, that's the end of the presentation. So I don't know if you have questions or you want to, how you want to handle that from here? Or come up there? Or what?
I'm sure we have questions. Let me,
We have
Andy,
to take, Ruth, do you want to take public testimony now?
do I want to what?
Do you want to take public
Yes, I'm going to.
testimony now?
No, are there members of the public who would like to speak before we get started with questions from the Planning Commission?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Edwin Henderson. I'm the president and founder of the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation. And first I'd like to thank the city and its staff, as well as Richard Rose and his staff, for being so responsive and willing to become what I believe will be the premier development in the city. This is by far the most friendly, community-friendly development project to take place inside the city. Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation is very much in support of the project proposed by Lincoln Properties for the reserve at Tenor Hill. The Heritage Walking Trail proposed along South Washington is the first of its kind in the city. Combined with the Tenor Hill Heritage Audio Tour, it will certainly become a highlight for residents, students, and visitors to the city. We will continue to work with the developer to refine the dates and interpretation for this heritage trail. Our concerns are in the details of the project. While it is generally agreed that the Tenor Hill Monument must be moved for the construction of the reserve at Tenor Hill, we would very much like for the arch not to be incorporated into the entrance of the grocery store. We believe, given the purpose of the monument to honor early Falls Church civil rights pioneers, we should not diminish that in any way. We are confident that the repositioning of the monument will achieve said end. We also feel very strongly that the pathway across South Washington Street at Tenor Hill should be consistent with other walkways in the project. The brick walkway is essential to giving residents, visitors, and others a strong visual cue that Tenor Hill is part of this community. The path across the street also leads people to the historic site, which will have amenities for all to enjoy. It is further suggested that the landing across on the opposite side of the street, the Tenor Hill side, incorporate some design element that announces, beckons, and welcomes people to the Tenor Hill neighborhood. Another caveat here is that, you know, this isn't just across the street to Tenor Hill too. This is the way that residents will get across the street to go to the Intermodal Transportation Center and catch transportation to their various jobs. Not just the reserve at Tenor Hill, but also Pearson Square. So it is much overdue that we improve these sidewalks and make it consistent with those that are also proposed in this development. The proposed white striping across South Washington will not help the safety issue at the crossing. The westbound travelers are not able to see pedestrians until they reach the crest of the hill, directly in front of the parking lot at Elevation Burger. The striping will not serve as a safety feature, which has been suggested by some city staff, in the most dangerous crossing area of the city. Perhaps signage denoting a hidden pedestrian crosswalk along with the traffic signal or maybe some ribbing so that they understand to slow down. Additionally, the walkways should have an element that leads visitors to other parts of the South Washington area, such as the Henderson House and other sites on the award-winning Heritage Walking Tour. We think the community kiosk is a wonderful mechanism to share information. We believe the kiosk on the South Maple side should not replace a small community space inside of the reserve at Tenor Hill. Perhaps visitors could enter and find more information or details, or small groups of visitors could begin tours or other activities at this point. A couple of other things that we're suggesting is that we want to encourage, as much as possible, the use of the tenor rock or the pink granite. And we also suggest, and we haven't seen it in some of these yet, that the name of the building should be prominently displayed on the front of the building along Lee Highway so that they know that they've arrived. These are my comments, and thank you for giving me some time.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this? Okay, we'll now close the meeting for public comment and move on to Planning Commissioner's comments and questions. Why don't we start down there with you, Andy? Okay, none right now. Russ?
Yeah, I noticed that the transformer looks like it is across the street in a bumped out sidewalk. Is that, am I seeing that correctly?
That's actually not the transformer for our development.
Okay, so we're,
Transformer for our development is underground on South Maple Street in a transformer vault located, if you see where the loading and garage entrance is,
for the
for the vehicular entrance. It's an underground vault in that location. Transformer you see on, you do see above grade transformer on Tenor Hill.
Right.
And that is because we're undergrounding some utility poles that have transformers on them that's
The transformers are here. They're in vaults at the entry, and they're completely covered with brick, so you won't see them. They are accessible. Virginia Power can pull them up, but they have to remove the bricks and pull up, precast planks to get to them.
Yeah, that's a result of the poles coming down.
correct.
Poles up that aren't on our deal that we take them down for us.
is there any landscaping associated with this the one that's visible? I'm really pleased to hear that the building's transformer is underground and won't be noticeable, but this appears pretty prominent to me. Is this?
Unfortunately, I mean, there's a couple bollards around it just to kind of, shield it from pedestrians, vehicles, and there's a hydrant nearby. There's not really much space for much landscaping. Probably look maybe do some ground cover maybe or small shrubs, but there's not enough space for real.
Normally, you can't have like woody
No, I understand.
Just from a staff point of view, I mean, one of the things they're doing is fixing leftover lines and poles that are off-site that didn't happen with Pearson Square. And absent a full undergrounding plan for Washington Street, which we probably should do at some point, this is a big improvement over the wooden pole with the transformers and the dropped lines. So not a perfect solution, but big improvement over what's really an off-site improvement that they're taking care of.
And no doubt, I'd rather see a transformer than overhead lines without any question. So I keep hearing about the arch being moved. On the layout plan, it's right in front of the entrance, and there seems to have, you made mention that it might be shifted. I guess I'm just not sure how it would be shifted and where is it?
Let me say where, right now the arch is right about here.
If I can,
It is really close to the curb. This arch is here, it's really here. And there's these other plaques which talk about the civil rights are kind of grouped behind there. So they're really kind of, if we left it where it was, it really be kind of blocking all of this off. So by moving it to be centered on this corner and kind of making this part of the plaza,
So if I understood the comments from the public, they are not wanting to see it be part of the entrance into the grocery stores.
Not a line, so that your experience of walking through the arch is part of being on the historical walking trail, part of a cultural experience, not going into the grocery store.
Yeah, no, I think their comments make a lot of sense. So, but so the way it looks like on sheet L 1.3, just so I'm clear, it is, as it is proposed right now, it is aligned with the entrance to the grocery store.
Yes, that's correct. And then that was what was presented to Art and Architecture Board last week. We committed to them, and we just have not done it yet because it's going to take a little study that we would do a 3D model at that corner to look and see if we could basically unalign it from the grocery store entrance.
Okay, so
while still
that
making
arch-
sure it's predominant. It needs to have a proper setting that respects it, and we want it to be predominantly displayed at that corner.
Oh, I think this plan really is quite respectful to the Tinner Hill heritage and history and all the history there and their efforts. So I'm sure you guys will look at it in a respectful way. But it makes sense to me that it wouldn't just be part of the entrance to the grocery store. I think disrespect may be too strong a word, but I don't think that's the best location for it. And I'd like to. I'm pleased to hear that's still in development, that part of it. Can you also address the comments about the brick sidewalk, crosswalk? It looks like there is one on the opposite side,
Yes, so
but just on Washington, it looks striped.
what's happening right now is based on past meetings with city staff and with transportation staff. Across Tinner Hill is the brick crosswalk like you see downtown everywhere. Across Washington, transportation staff had proposed that for safety reasons, it should be the white striping. And so basically, the team's original design intent, we wanted enhanced crosswalks. I mean, we've been labeling enhanced at both locations, meaning brick or, some other enhanced material. We've heard from stakeholders, Catch and at the Art and Architecture Board, they felt like they should both be brick, which was our intent in the first place. And so we've gone back to staff, and staff has basically, Karen's had some meetings with Public Works and talked about it. They basically have concurred that the brick would be fine. So all of that was sort of happening today, the past couple days. So what you see is what was as submitted, but the design team is perfectly willing, it would actually be consistent to go to both being brick.
Well, that would
I
certainly
think
be
I
my
might mention,
preference.
we have been working on trying to tighten up the cross-section. I think we mentioned this, the small area plan, so that we have 11-foot lanes in this urban section of South Washington Street. And that possibly could give another 2 feet on both the north and south side for sidewalks. On the south side, it's particularly important because the sidewalk almost doesn't exist, and there is a very insufficient ADA kind of landing, bare minimum. And so we're hoping that that is something that can be done and accomplished, and as a part of this report, we've got an option for that to happen. Trying to reduce that down to a lesser distance. In that sense, I think the brick crosswalk, if that's been worked out with Public Works, with appropriate additional striping or even some kind of signing further to the east, letting people know there's a hidden street, would be a good move. But we are trying to tighten everything up so we have better pedestrian crossing and then better pedestrian access on the south side of Washington to the future transit plaza, because presently it's really bad.
So, Jim, are you saying that the 11th Street narrowing, the 11-foot lane narrowing is going to be part of this project?
We have an option in here, I believe, that if we can get all the approvals to work, that would be the way we would go. It would give additional sidewalk width.
And who do you have to get approvals from?
Well, it's in the city, so I think we can approve it ourselves, but getting rid of these 3-foot painted medians and 12-foot lanes, which For example, the new Tyson's Corner urban standards that VDOT has have 11-foot lanes. And so trying to narrow it down, more room for pedestrians, some traffic calming, particularly in this urban section where we have a lot of density and hopefully people walking.
I think in our plan, we have one, if we widen, if they're able to widen the street, narrow. If they're able to narrow the street, then we're fine with that. But if they're not able to narrow the street, we also have a plan that takes care of that, because when it comes time to do it, we need to go ahead and do it, so.
That's correct. And do but we don't have any of those alternate plans in front of us.
Well, it would just give 2 more feet of sidewalk, clear sidewalk width on this side. So just pull that curb out 2 feet and it makes it wider. And pull it northward on the south side, hopefully, and we would end up with more space there.
We do have an alternate plan in this set that you have.
Oh, good.
The big sheets.
Oh, the big sheets, okay. Okay.
So I think I heard what I wanted to hear, but my preference is to have that crosswalk be brick as well. If that sounds like that's already, you've already heard that, but I want to just voice my own opinion. And I just want to make sure I understand, this was my last question here. On Tinner Hill Street, there's a door a marking for a door about midway down the street. I don't, is that just an, yeah.
I think that door is actually going away.
Oh, okay.
That was the door required for the second egress from the grocery store, and I think we're actually going to make that go away.
Okay, yeah, no, I assumed it was like a fire exit or something like that, and I just want to make sure that that was not another entrance into the grocery store.
It's a fire exit, but the reality is, we're actually in the process of working with Fresh Market. They want that to go away, so we're going to get rid of it.
Okay, I'd like to go away as well.
So a fire door is not required?
We're going to join the lobby, that we have the existing lobby. I don't have the plans with me, but there's an existing lobby here to access the Fresh Market from South Maple. We're going to exit through that lobby instead of exiting through there. We have one exit here and one exit here, which is required to exit. So we're in the process of working that out with Fresh Market. That's typical because you get into these things in these grocery stores and they change their minds. And they really kind of, at one point they wanted it here, and now they want to go out here, so.
Well-
Excuse me, just
Yes.
as a quick follow-up, isn't that the same area where we have the little grocery, not grocery, but the little retail shops?
There's a,
That portion right there is the retail area, and that's the rear lobby, that portion is the rear lobby to Fresh Market.
Okay.
This is the retail right here. Yep.
So rather than it being access into, it's going to be egress out?
no, it'll be both.
Oh, it'll be both,
so you-
okay.
People coming down can go into the building, to get into Fresh Market from here, and people, in a case of emergency, people would actually egress to that market.
It was originally put there so that the people from Pearson Square could come straight across up into the grocery store.
Into the grocery store,
Instead of
okay.
having to walk around.
And is there an elevator, or is it handicap accessible?
Yes.
Over on that side? I figured you might. Okay.
So handicap can come in here, get the elevator to go up, about a half level to the Fresh Market level and get into Fresh Market.
Okay.
And there's handicap accessible here into Fresh Market. Plus, if you park in here, you can walk, the handicap spaces inside the parking area. They can get right out of the car and right into Fresh Market.
Thank you.
I have no more questions. I just, the general comment, we've seen this at great length and numerous work sessions, and I'm really pleased with what's being presented before us here. I think it looks fantastic. I'm curious to see what the materials look like, the changes, but as a theoretical description, they sound really a good improvement to one to work with Pearson Square, another to make the top part of the building lighter, and I saw a lot of matching elements that really appealed to me. But overall, I agree with the comment we heard before. I think this is going to be the premier development here in our city, and really nice job, again, incorporating the history of the area. So this will get my strong support.
Rick,
Yes.
Can I go next?
Yes, you may go
Okay.
next. I thought, yeah,
I just want to make sure.
I was just expecting you to go next. I'm
Okay, sorry. Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that I really do like the color changes. I definitely like the flipping, the dark and light. I think that did make a big difference, and I think the building will match with Pearson a lot better. And I think, you know what, the truth is, it's a more traditional look now, but that tends to age better. You know, you always look back 20 years back at something that has a little more avant-garde, and then it doesn't age well for whatever reason. One thing I did want to say, one of the comments that Ketch had was the direction of the history. Did you guys change it so it's going from, you know, older to younger?
Really are matching what they are proposing.
Okay,
so
great.
we didn't change it because we're already, that's.
Oh, you were matching. Okay,
the
I guess
way
that was a
that-
misunderstanding.
No, the
then.
way the timeline is proposed is you would start
At the bottom.
at the bottom, which is the lower part of the street elevation near the park, and that would be the oldest dates. And
Okay.
then when you get to the arch, we were proposing that the last two milestones would be Joseph Tenner and E.B. Henderson, so you ascend up to the most current dates of the cultural.
Okay. I thought that's what I remembered before, and then I thought maybe it had changed at some point, and now it's changing back. So, okay.
No, so I
So
think
that,
they're good.
so right now then, you guys on the landscaping, because just trying to figure out where we are on the landscaping, everything is pretty much set except for this section where you're doing the column work.
That's
But
correct.
everything else on here is what you expect it to be in terms
Yes,
of the
the-
plantings. Because I know like the little park area has changed and changed and changed, but this is, you know, the kiosk is going to be here. This is what we're going to have.
Yes, that's very, as you just stated, everything has been highly detailed and refined, except the art pillars, because it
Right.
is an art piece. We're really, you know, studying that and kind of thinking about, you know, what it's doing, what it's saying, and the materials, but everything else has been figured out.
So it's really that and the actual location of the arch, which would also change maybe some of the other pieces.
It's
But I
possible.
remember you guys, the reason it ended up like it was because if we go to the side, then you really don't see it except as this, when you drive by. And when it went, so it was like one of these things where you're trying to figure out how is it most visible, and I guess.
I think the study will help with that too. That the 3D model will help us.
Yeah, what I remember was like, because if you were coming down or up, you were more likely to see it when it was more kind of angled towards the road. But, you know, I think that people driving by aren't going to see it that well anyway. So maybe it really should be oriented to what looks best walking through it, so. But I do remember why it ended up that way, and at the time, it seemed like it was going to be, you know, it would just be more visible in that location, so I understand that. You know, also with Russ, I do like the changes in the colors and the little bit different style on the building, but I do wish you guys had the materials, because we all know that printers never print exactly the colors. Do you have boards?
Oh, great, because I was going to ask the same question.
Oh, great, because that makes my life much more.
We have finished material boards
Oh, great, okay.
with some actual samples on it. We have a picture of the stone, we don't have a sample of it. It's a little heavy to carry around, but here you can see the
Dark.
darker red brick,
The-
the pinkish brick.
Yeah, see, it's not really
pinkish
pink, Wes.
stone. These are the various fiber cement colors. This is the vinyl window cover. We have some aluminum windows storefront down here, vinyl windows up here. We have some metal canopies here. We have also this metal canopy.
Somewhat far left.
Kind of up here it is, right here. This is the metal canopy.
Right.
We have the metal railings on the balconies. And we have the precast band. You see the precast band along here, and along here, and along here, over the doors, on top of the brick. Anywhere there's brick at the top is a precast band. And then where we have the paneling, we're doing a metal coping, which is either going to probably match the color. Well, it says white here, but that's probably going to end up matching the color below. We haven't changed that yet. So.
Yeah, the dark brick and the what you're calling the pink brick really isn't that pink, people out there in the world. It's really more of a beige kind of, but they
Well, you know,
complement each other very well.
When you get large samples of this, it starts to change color. The problem is you're looking at one.
Right, where there's a little piece.
when you get a 2 foot by 2 foot square or a 4 by 4
I,
square.
I just don't want people to think it's really pink. It's,
Well, there will
it's
be
a variation
there will
that
be
has
a
some in it.
color sample panel mock-up made on the site eventually that will have all these materials in much larger areas. And it may change, quite frankly. This brick may get a little lighter, this brick may get a little pinker. We just have to, we kind of go through what we can find available to us, and as we go through the project, we try to stay with this, but we might end up making it a different brick. It might be a little bit lighter, it might be a little redder, it just happens. And the same thing with the stone. I mean, this is a picture of a stone that we found that we like. When we get the actual sample, it may change colors again, because
Right.
the picture you get, the sample color, we just got to get a sample of it.
But I think people were hoping that if you guys did come across the Tenor Hill pink rand, there's some use for it.
Well, we're gonna see when we excavate the site, see if there's any there.
Yeah, there was a lot under Pearson.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad you had the panel.
I'm glad you have that.
I think that's it for me, except for one question for staff. Mr. Snyder? So on the crosswalk, so they're switching to brick, which is great, so it'll match the other crosswalk, and it's gonna come across the Tenor Hill. But I don't really know if we can make the reserve at Tenor Hill responsible for how it lands on the other side. So as part of the Tenor Hill historic project, are we going to make sure there are sidewalks on that side and that there's a place as you're coming across that's a safe landing?
Well,
or-
I think this will be hopefully providing an ADA landing on the opposite side.
Okay, so
And
the
if we can
reserve
pull that
is
curb
gonna do that,
north,
okay.
that'll give the engineers more room to do a good job with that. I'd also like to close if we can, what's already closed, unused entry point of the used car lot, which they have cars parked in front of a driveway, which should go away. It's not being used. They're parking cars in front of it. Right now, it's a pedestrian impediment. And I think the broader issue for the Planning Commission is, how are we going to fill the gap between this fine project, which is undergrounding and doing a good start, and the proposed transit plaza, because there is a stretch of public sidewalk in poor shape with a lot of poles and wires, which need to be taken care of. Or we're going to have a bunch of up and down poles and wires and unconnected sidewalks. So that's a bigger issue for CIP, and how do we finish off the street? But this and those two projects give us a great way to finish a large stretch. Now, we do need to come up with probably sidewalk from the landing up to the Tenor Hill Park. And so where that would go, we need to look at that with Ms. Mester and Public Works staff on how that can be accomplished.
Okay, so basically, the reserve is part of the project. They're doing the crosswalk, and you actually are gonna do the landing on the other side where it ends up. And then the sidewalk into the project will have to be part of another project.
And it may be that there may need to be some plastic things in front of these. It may be helpful to have some of this in front of the brick, on either side, Karen. That's something you may want to work out with Public Works, the banding, yeah.
Some kind of a message.
Yeah, because that can help provide a reflective
Right, okay.
piece. Right.
Okay.
And possibly some warning signs further east so that you could know that it is hidden.
Yeah.
If you've experienced it, it's hidden. So it maybe there's a useful caution sign on the public right-of-way that the staff can put up to let people know that, there's a hidden street entrance, pedestrian way.
Okay.
It is a safety issue.
There is a traffic light at this intersection we're talking about. Will be.
There is
That's what I
not
mean.
now, there
No,
will
I understand.
be, yes.
I meant to say will be.
6 years of it opening.
Yeah, but I get the concerns that even with the traffic light, people are gonna be cresting. So, even just for the traffic light, not even for the crosswalk, we may want a warning that a light, as you're approaching a light, so. But people will start to realize there's a light there pretty quickly.
About in front of Fox's Music, that area there, where you can't see, but you think I've got clear sailing. In fact, you have a hidden street. So
Right, okay.
something on the right-hand side, I think, can be very useful.
Yeah, okay, well, that was everything I had. I think the project is looking very good. Thank you.
Quaffo, did you want to comment?
Just a quick thing. I think most of my questions have been answered regarding the safety of the crosswalk. But there was one thing that I thought that one thought that occurred to me as we were talking about the arch versus the entrance to the grocery store. I'd like to float an idea. Since the arch was there first, before the building is coming in, would you consider moving the entrance of the grocery store rather than moving the arch?
You know, we always consider everything.
Right. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
From a fresh market standpoint, they want their grocery store right there at the corner.
Actually, that was going to be one of my comments too, because I go out to the fresh market store in Vienna all the time, and their entrance is in the middle of the store. And
It's tucked away, too.
it is,
It's
and
way back in
people
the back.
find it anyway. It's a very popular store. And one of the things I noticed is that most grocery stores have things that they put outside their entryway. You know, they have little things that they're showing that week or whatever, and that's always outside the entrance. I don't know how they're going to put anything outside on that little tiny corner, and particularly with the arch there. I mean, I don't care where, to tell you the truth, I don't care where you put the arch. But if that entry is so angled that you're not going to be able to put displays out there. It just seems to me that it's more logical to have the entrance in the middle of the store. And if you're obligated to go with what they want, I guess you have to do that.
Let me say something about that. What Fresh Market wants to do, this is their outdoor dining area, their indoor dining area, their indoor where you can buy food and sit inside, and this is their outdoor
Right.
area, much as you would see at any of these kind of urban grocery stores. This area here will be where they'll probably put some vegetables and fruits, and they want to line them up over here too. So their outdoor vegetable display, fruit display, whatever you want to call it, is going to be up here
Mhm.
on Tenor and a little bit here, and this is their outdoor dining area. So they're planning on activating this street. And now with this, I think the street has gotten, what, 2 or 3 feet more wider, right, Karen? So it makes it even better. Now they've got 10 feet between the building and the planter, where before they had 7. So now there's going to be, some real areas, roomier areas where they can put their stuff. So they really kind of want to have their front doors surrounded by, fruits and vegetables on display, outdoor seating. And then this is all, anybody can walk down here and sit here and eat too if they want to.
Mhm.
It's not dedicated for that, so we can do it. That's the intent of what Fresh Market is.
I'm sorry, okay, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I think if I can still argue the point for leaving the arch where it is, the entrance into a grocery store can be moved and you can re-angle the front of the building to, right now we're talking about a building that's still on paper. You can re-angle the front of it so that even when you're coming down on 29, if you're going west, you can still see the entrance of the building. You have the arch there, then there's no conflict between the two. And so I would take a good look at that again. Thank you.
Mr. Meeks?
Well, so my first question really is for Mr. Snyder and Mr. Bruce. Can you, Jim? Quick question.
Just getting excited about the more sidewalk on Tinner Hill.
Okay. I don't understand
much to get you excited.
this
Wide
VDOT
sidewalks,
thing
I like
as
those.
it relates to this project, and stay with the crosswalk. But so can you explain, so I read in the staff report when we're going to VDOT, but I don't understand that. So can you just in clear and concise language sort of what's the timeline on the VDOT and what's the timeline on the traffic light?
The traffic line, I believe, you're working to have that installed and operational. It's part of the condition of the grocery store,
Yeah,
correct?
the traffic light, what the city did is they wanted to do an overall warrant study up and down the street to send to VDOT. And we said, that's fine, you guys can do it. We're going to do our own study. And through the city is submitting that to VDOT. And I think they may have already submitted already, because the warrant, with the new development, it is warranted to have a signal there. And so we're trying to move that along to have that done as fast as possible.
But I believe part of your agreement with Fresh Market is getting that traffic light in, right?
Well, but
there's so many requirements.
The warrant study does or does not reflect on making the picking up the extra 2 feet.
No, it doesn't. And what we're
Not
looking.
related at all.
No.
And
yes,
it's
that's
not
correct.
related at all to the crosswalk being some material. Correct, fine, got it. And then also, kind of a city staff question. You know, our code does not, I think it would be terrific if you could put the reserve at Tenor Hill up on the building. I think it would be terrific because I think it is a more urban look, and I think most people like it to put the signage up on the building. But our code and our code won't allow this and is very sticky on this subject. So I don't know if we can amend this as part of the site plan approval. My God, they had to go through a whole situation. And, you know, at the Byron, even where it's written into their special exception that the retail on the second level could have signage, they wouldn't allow it when they went in, which is why the Jazzercise people did the funky thing that they did. So I don't know. I would just tell you that the way our code is written, this is not allowed, and it's a big, started to curse. It's a you can't get that easily. So I don't know if you want that as part of the
Well, I think
special
if the commission has opinions on it that you would want to reflect in your motion, that would be helpful. We have put on our list of things to make changes to, the idea of being able to have, as a part of a comprehensive sign plan, signs at a second level. So, for example, you could, through a comprehensive sign plan, do it. It's not been written into code yet. There was a variance granted for the renovated building on Annandale Road to allow that, and it was crucial to have tenants who would be able to occupy it. They needed signing. So I think that's a code revision. The project with Harris Teeter went through and did a signing plan, and I may have gotten a variance in terms of signing. So it might be, you haven't developed your sign plan yet. So I think a comprehensive sign plan, if you needed to get something from the BZA, something from the commission saying you support it would be helpful.
But the tax analysts, I would just tell you, the tax analysts ran into problems because the BZA and the special exception allows you to go, the exception is to go to the second floor. It doesn't say anything about going to the third or the fourth floor, and so this becomes this whole issue which we've discussed ad nauseum, and we won't get into it now, whether it's a hardship to go from the second to the fourth or the fifth floor.
There was one sign approved for the L.F. Jennings building recently, so it is a topical thing we need to address in the zoning ordinance to provide the flexibility for approval of something like that as part of a comprehensive sign plan, not as a by right plan per se, but as part of a designed plan.
Yeah, we covered that. I got nothing. Thank you very much.
Lindy?
Thank you. I'm very glad that you're doing more of coordination with Pearson Square, because that building turned out very, very nicely. And does that dark brick, is that the same as in Pearson, or is it similar?
It's similar, but we're not.
Similar, okay. But you did say the brick and the sidewalks is going to be the same. And also, the other thing, you mentioned trees that you're going to be putting along South Maple. Are they the same trees as on the other side or different?
Oh, excuse me just a minute. For the purposes of the recording, can I get you to use the mic, please? Thanks.
So we have proposed a specific variety of the sugar maple. I'm not sure what variety that they specifically use,
Oh,
but
so it is a maple, though.
It is a maple. We know there have been concerns about the performance and other things, but we're looking at a variety that we feel like will perform well in an urban condition in the tree planter pit. And we just really believe that that'll be important to matching the character across.
Right, and
street name.
certainly with the fall color, and any maple is gorgeous.
So there is a planting legend in your site plan submission, and if you go to, it's L5.0, and it's the Green Mountain Sugar Maple.
I'm just making sure. The other thing is that any more details or changes in the open space plaza?
So we have worked to refine that. What the plan that's currently proposed, and let me just direct your attention to what page that's on. You can go to L 5.1, that shows the planting and hardscape. What
Is it similar to what we've,
It's very similar to what we're seeing. We've refined it slightly. It has an area that we're calling the Events Plaza, which is about 1,000 square feet of hardscape, along with a continuation of the trail. We want to make sure you have, continuous loop. There's an open lawn area that's about 1,300 square feet. We thought that'd be a great place to, put blankets and chairs out for outdoor movies or, evening events. And then there is areas for outdoor dining. There's electrical outlets for events. We're trying to make sure that it's really flexible for
Usable.
festivals and fairs and
Good.
cultural.
and the windows that are down on the retail facing the comic book store, are those, you're going to still wait for any restaurant to decide what type they want? Whether you're going to have garage type or opening to the outside, or?
Yes, we don't know yet. We're waiting for
Okay.
a tenant. One thing we have done is we've shown stairs there. We are allowed to put stairs in there now, so we're showing some stairs now.
Okay,
So,
okay,
but
great.
those could change too as tenants come along.
Next big question, the sidewalk down to the corner of South Maple and South Washington, is that going to be the same as are we going to break out into brick down there? The South Washington down to, down to where South Maple comes in.
So you're talking right there on the,
Well, it goes all the way down to that corner.
oh, no, we're stopping at the property line.
Okay.
So
So we got to decide how to handle that in the future. Yeah, okay, just wanted to know that. And only other thing, any chance, Jim, of us getting the city together to do any undergrounding when we're undergrounding everything else along South Washington?
I think these are CIP items that, need to be identified. This stuff doesn't happen for free, and it's done less expensively if it's done in a coordinated,
coordination.
larger fashion. Unfortunately, you end up with, when you only do piecemeal, you end up with a lot of termination poles that go up and
Yeah.
down, and that would be unfortunate. So
Or one
it's-
pole park on West
The only
Broad?
thing I'd say about that too is if you want to coordinate, it's a long process to go through Dominion Power and getting it all done. So if you want to coordinate, you need to do it sooner rather than later.
Right, right.
'Cause it's
So
taking us about a year.
that would be something that we'd be planning. Well, I really like all the changes that have been made.
It's certainly a direction, an additional direction you could give to this in terms of your interest in signing, and also, part of it is finding a way to connect up to the transit plaza. We have this gap area that,
Well, I think it's.
I don't know the answer for the funding, but
Yeah.
it's something that needs to be
I know
addressed.
that we probably can't do the streetscape up at the upper part of South Washington Street, but it certainly would be nice to get it all underground at the same time. If we're messing up Route 29, we might as well mess it up.
Well, the big expense is the undergrounding, the restoration, things can be restored. They have to be restored with something, so it might as well be nice materials.
Okay.
And I just might add that, I think in our negotiations with everybody, I think folks are beginning to come around that the best way to invest in the future is these kinds of expenditures, because the future of future development depends on the attractiveness
right.
of the street. And it'll begin to, develop critical mass at some point.
Right, and we stressed that with the presentation of South Washington Street plan
Yeah.
with the council, with
We
examples.
preach
of
it
the-
every time we get a chance.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll say something to that too, is we were talking at the small area plan last Wednesday, I think it was, is that one of the things that I had, when I would bring investors here and they would see the other side of the street and they would look at it and they were going, really, you want to do it here? And until Jim finished the plan and we had the flyover and stuff like that, I could show that the city does want to do something and they are going to change this. I mean, it's very helpful. So I think as much as you can do to clean that up, the more you end up bringing new businesses in too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I do have a concern, and it has to do with the plaza space. Now, you said this was the final plan? Okay. Would you go over, reiterate why there's not more plantings in this area?
I will do my best. So basically, the plaza area is in a floodplain, and floodway. Is in a floodway, and currently it is in a paved condition. So when the engineers model floodwaters moving through it, they get a certain result that's based upon the water moving quickly across the pavement, so that it doesn't dam up or back up and cause more flooding upstream. So the engineer, to get the new improvements shown here, the hardscape, the trees, the shrubs, the perennials, all of that, we had to stay within a certain coefficient. What meant if we planted a forest of trees, we would actually potentially cause more damming and
Flooding
flooding
down at the corner
upstream.
of Maple. Okay.
Upstream. So he gave us a specific coefficient he was looking for. We provided him the trees, the locations, whether it was woody shrubs or perennial shrubs underneath it, the areas of lawn versus hardscape, and we had a very narrow coefficient that we were trying to reach, and this plan successfully achieves that result.
So the only plantings here will be along the edge of the property that backs up to the comic store.
Just one quick thing before you answer that. This is not a subjective thing. This is an application we had to make to FEMA. And it's called the CLOMAR, and that we're hoping that gets approved in, I think, in the next couple of weeks it should be, and then as long as we build to whatever they've approved, then they'll give us what's called a LOMAR, which is a understanding that it's done. So it's not a arbitrary thing that we did.
I understand, but I'm just trying to figure out where the green is here. So there are trees along the edge, and
Yes.
then there's planters or something up along the building?
So and I might just encourage that the planting plan is L 5.1.
Right.
Okay. So yes, there would be additional, the border along the property line that's along the comic book store has trees. And it's a little dark, but
Yeah.
there's a number of trees. I think there's about 8 or 9 trees here.
And are they shade trees?
They're river birch and
Okay.
swamp oak.
Okay.
So we're trying to evoke the stream quality, even though the stream is channelized next to it. And then underneath it are shrubs, native grasses, and perennials. And actually, if you can go, Mark, there's a slide that shows the actual trees. Then this is a lawn area.
So
Yeah,
this,
no,
this
is
the
perfect.
green space is actually grass?
Yes, the triangle in the upper corner is actually about 1,300 square feet of lawn right there.
Okay.
That's grass. Then we have additional street trees along the Maple Avenue edge with planter boxes underneath. And then we do have a low border of additional ground cover shrubs and perennials along the base of the building and planter pots. But so the trees along the property line with the comic book store there's river birch and swamp white oak. So beautiful, elegant riparian trees. And then the plantings are native grasses, perennials, and shrubs that will attract butterflies, birds, insects. And we're trying to really evoke the riparian quality of the stream that currently is channelized, but
Right.
so an emphasis on native plantings in the Gateway Plaza.
I think my concern is that that's a rather large space in the middle, even though part of it is grass and is green, that there is no shade. And, it's it gets the late afternoon sun, and I'm just wondering who would use it if there's no shade there. So, and I know you can't put trees in the middle. Could you put planters with things growing in them? I mean, what?
Everything in the park except for, of course, the trees and shrubs have to be movable. So if there is an actual flood event and the National Weather Service puts out the alarm, everything in that park has to be moved into a storage area and most likely be in the garage. So that was
But
more.
planters wouldn't have to be moved.
Yeah, the benches that are out there have to be movable, all the chairs, the seating, if we did shade umbrellas, planter pots, 100%, unless it's like a tree with roots in the ground, it has to be taken up and moved into the garage.
In case it got watered accidentally.
No, it's so that it doesn't cause, doesn't back up flood
yeah.
waters. Like if something was fixed, like a table or bench, debris could, from upstream in the flood could actually create like a dam condition, and there could be flooding upstream of that. And
Those are
so-
serious restrictions to that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. So you probably couldn't have built anything down there anyway.
No. So the kiosk is out of the floodway.
Well, when we first started, we didn't know we were in the floodway. We thought we were in the floodplain, and we thought we were going to be able to build there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it came to a big surprise to us when we found out we were in the floodway. And I think it ought to be a big surprise to Victory Comics that they're in the floodway and will never be able to build anything there. And they should have sold that to us back in the day.
We're hopeful that soon will be. We're hopeful that it soon will be a stream.
Yeah, one day it'll just
Yeah.
fall in. So what we're really, given some very serious restrictions we have been very focused on a place that is flexible, multi-purpose. I mean, if there's an art fair, you can set up, tents, like the movable white tents like you see, the 10 by 10 or 20 by 20. You could set up tables. We've got electrical outlets. There's space
No,
to do
I did hear
outdoor
you. I
movies.
did hear you say that. I was just thinking about something that's facing west, southwest,
No,
and it's going to be
absolutely-
really hot in the summertime when you would be using it. So, okay. Are there further comments or questions?
Electrical outlets. How are you treating those outlets in the floodway? Oh.
And electrical outlets are meant to be, exterior ones do have covering, and they're closer to the building. So there's actually a plan, not sure if it was, we presented it to AARB, where we showed the plan for electrical outlets, and there's 4 of them in the park, but they're all aligned and connected to the building. Yeah, they would have a covering on.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to do a motion with a few just conditional issues in it, just because there are some things in flux. But, this is something that the staff can review most of these. Okay, so I move that the Planning Commission give preliminary and final approval of the site plan application number 2012-0818, contingent upon, 1, the landscaping plan come back for final approval if not in final form as of this date. 2, the staff having the option to work with developer on the final colors and materials of the structure. And 3, administrative staff review to make minor technical changes to the site plan as needed, including approved subdivision consolidation associated with the site plan.
It's been moved, as you see on your sheet. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. I don't know how to do this since I can't make motions. But I would like to have someone consider the final approval if it is not in final form. I also think we should say something about if there are changes made subsequent to this approval.
Well, I
and
think,
I don't know.
I think if it says if it's not in final form as of this date, so that means if any changes are
If any
made
changes are
afterwards, it has to come back.
Is
for
that your
approval.
understanding of that, Jim?
Right.
I think so. I guess one of the questions is, a lot of times when you have a landscape plan that gets amended, we can bring it by and let you look at it and explain the changes without having to have a formal, hearing or approval. In other words, we can bring it as a consulting.
So it could be the landscaping plan come back for review if it's not in final form as of this date.
If there's a need to, I guess, I think we're in pretty good shape.
I think we are too, but we still haven't decided where the arch thing is going to go, and I don't understand this about a kiosk.
We could
Well,
mention
kiosk
those
is gonna be
specific
outside,
items then, that you'd like to have clarity on those particular items.
And we'd like to have final approval, as
Yeah.
Melissa said in her
Well,
motion.
I mean, that wouldn't be a hardship for you once, because it sounds like you've got to wait for FEMA to come back and make sure they are happy with this. We have to move the arch, and you have to finalize those
Really,
columns.
the
just-
arch.
Yeah, just to
So-
come back and say, this is what we have, and okay. Because I'm okay if we don't use the final approval language and we use a review language.
Well, I
This
like
was
to-
your
That's-
language, staff, so I was
Oh,
going
okay.
with what you had
Yeah.
said.
I'd like to stick with the final approval if no one,
If it doesn't create a
What I'm
hardship.
getting at is, though, we wouldn't have a public hearing. We could bring it to you in
Right.
a work session, kind of.
Okay.
That would
Setting.
be fun.
and then if we have any
Get your okay.
major objections, we
Yeah.
could,
That would be fine. You want us to do anything with the sign?
Well, I think
no,
if you,
that's the AAB.
if you support flexibility on the signing, I think you
Well, I guess we could just,
could say so.
Well, that
Yeah.
will come back to us because you have to go to the AAB and then it comes.
But now's a good time, while you're talking about it, to say you support that approach. As they haven't developed a sign plan, so
Well, I
it's
don't,
also direction to the applicant in terms of developing it.
I don't like supporting anything I haven't seen developed.
Okay?
Okay.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
yes,
Yes.
of course.
So if the action that you take tonight is and let's say the arch changes or whatever, and I have to come back and show, is that a public hearing? Does that get voted on that way?
No, that would be like a work session.
So it's a,
Yeah, we just,
We just want to see where it is and discuss it with you. We're assuming it'll come back and we'll be like, that's great, thank you.
and you can do it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You don't have to be here at 9 o'clock at night.
I guess the only question I have is that a lot of things tied to financing everything is that the
I
public
understand.
process is over with.
Yeah.
And that everything else is administrative.
Well, this is
Yeah,
preliminary and
This would not be
final.
a public process. This is just like an internal thing.
We gave you preliminary and final approval.
Yes. So, and all we're asking
we
is just to
haven't voted.
see where
But
the
we
arch
haven't
is gonna
voted.
be.
And just,
Yeah,
so. and-
right.
And just to clarify, that and the art piece are the only things
That's in flux that we know of.
that still
Right.
would be.
But you still could have something come back from FEMA where they say, no, move this, and so we just like to know that. And the rest of the stuff is just the ability of the staff to make small technical changes. That helps you, because you don't want to have to come back to us for small technical changes.
We can be, yeah, that's
You
true.
think It's easier than Mr. Snyder and Mr. Bruce, is that what you're saying? Well,
Okay.
usually that's better for you, I'll say that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that the language that you see before us for site plan application 2012-0818 be approved. Get preliminary and final approval from the planning commission. Would you please call the roll on this item?
Sure. Mr. Meeks,
Yes.
Mr. Rankin,
Yes.
Ms. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Teets,
Yes.
Mr. Wodiska,
yes.
Mr. John,
Yes.
Ms. Hockenberry.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay.
And you have a unanimous approval, and we'll see you if there are any major changes.
Well, anyway, we look forward to seeing this built. It's been a long road, I know.
I do want to thank the commission, and there has been a
Want
lot
these?
of really great collaboration to take this from ideas to this
I've got my
point.
4 copies of the other one.
Well, I feel like I'm.
No, but I'm taking them up to school.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't want to keep their copies, I'll be glad to recycle them, so you can just leave them with me.
Goodbye, thank you very much.
You've been wonderful to work with.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to move on to the items that we bypassed, and they'll be pretty quick.
Director's report.
I was ready to, I was packing up.
No, lest you forget.
Well, all right. Is there
Yeah,
any
okay.
reports?
Are there any reports by the Planning Commission?
No, too late for report.
Okay. Mr. Snyder, do you have any, do you have a planning director's report?
Very briefly, I mean, we are working along trying to finalize and respond to comments on the South Washington Street plan. We had a meeting today, about 2 hours, with representatives from VPUS. And so we're going to try to incorporate or make changes with the final plan to address some good and helpful comments. Also, looking ahead, heard from the city manager, they're looking to have a work session that you will be invited to on November 14th, which is, I believe, a Thursday, with the school board.
Oh,
Talk a joint planning type of session.
awesome.
So I'll know more about that looking ahead. And we are looking ahead to our meeting on the 4th in advance of the election on the 5th. So that'll be a big item coming forward in terms of your hoping to get the Harris Teeter project on board with that. We are working on the city center plan, hoping to see if we can finish it before the end of the year so that this council will have a shot at it. That'll be a stretch, but we're working on that. We are beginning our recruitment process again for the other planner, and we're very pleased with our new person that you were introduced to tonight, who was at the AAB meeting for this project as well as.
Well, will she actually be doing planning work for us?
Well, my hope is that she will staff the AAB and will be interacting with the planners, and certainly as much as anyone. She's got a great background and
Oh, that's what
very
I was thinking.
enthusiastic, and
Looks like it.
I'm sure she'll be able to make contributions. So it's a very good hire, and she's excited about working with us. And we about having her on board. And so there are other things, but
Who's Catch? Who's Catch?
this
Cultural
is
group.
It's a cultural group, yeah.
the City of Arts, Theater, Culture, and History, I believe.
Come on, Cindy, what are the?
Lindy's the representative.
And I'm your liaison to it, and it was requested to put it
City
in
of-
place by the city council.
I believe it's the City of Arts,
Yep, yep.
Culture, and History. And there is the
Theater.
overlay district, which hasn't been finalized, which encompasses a large part
And history.
this
something
of
to
South
history.
Washington Street, City Center, and North Washington Street areas. And that is,
Very active group.
And the only thing I'd like to know is, do they see every new project that's coming in before the Planning Commission?
Who?
Catch?
No.
no, not typically.
Well, it seemed that this one they.
This one
certainly
in
did.
particular, because of the
Inner Hill.
cultural issues that were involved. They've been very active in this. And they're involved with the Arts Center and Art Space.
And also the big meeting we
called
had at Tax Analysts with all the people concerned.
We had that special meeting as a part of the South Washington Street plan to collect as much as we could from people about arts and culture.
Okay, thank you very much.
Jim, could
we
I
have, I'm
just
sorry.
ask, Jim, when was the vote deferred till?
The 28th, so we're going to be trying to put together things this week for that meeting on the 28th.
And the Pennsylvania traffic light was
By this time next year.
there, you know?
Well, probably sooner, but
Well,
Oh, no.
and I suggest we mention it every single meeting.
Answer will always be this time
I'd
next
just
year.
like everybody to know that I sat in on the meeting with VPUS representatives on the small area plan for South Washington Street, and they had some good technical comments, and I think it's going to be really helpful to incorporate those, so.
yeah, it
Jim
was
and-
very useful. We had several staff people there, as well as Garrison Kit from on speakerphone, so.
Right. All right, well, we have no minutes to approve, so I would like to move to adjournment.
So moved.
Second.